The federal trial of the city-state's attorney delayed due to concerns over witness testimony. The arguments presented by both sides for the new start date. The city council grills DPW over their handling of the water crisis. How the council is holding agency leaders accountable for what they say were major communication errors. Wes Moore and Dan Cox make their pitches for the future of Maryland at a virtual forum. The crucial issues raised by both candidates.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's trial has been delayed, and we learned late today it won't happen until next spring. Good afternoon. I'm Rielle Creighton.
And I'm Mary Bubala. Thank you for joining us. March 27th is the new start date after an extended back and forth over which date would work. Today's hearing just wrapped up. We will have live coverage in just a moment.
Now in a city in crisis, Baltimore police are looking for help in identifying a murder suspect. Take a look at your screen. This person is accused of beating and robbing 60-year-old Victor Melabayebas in August. It happened on South Kenwood Avenue near Fleet Street. The suspect was seen leaving an area in a 2005 gold Buick Regal. If you have any information, call Baltimore Police or Metro Crime Stoppers at 1-866-7-LOCK-UP. Baltimore police are identifying 3 people killed in the last several weeks. Monica Bullock was killed on August 26th on Easterbury Avenue near Sinclair Lane in Northeast Baltimore. Jessica Johnson died on September 11th on Frederick Avenue near Franklintown Road in West Baltimore. And Terrell Davis was killed yesterday on North Calhoun Street near West Landvale Street, also in West Baltimore.
Well, Baltimore is on pace to see record high levels of violence this year. So far, 248 people have been killed, compared to 239 at this time last year. People have survived 526 shootings this year. That is 35 more than in 2021. A fiery hearing into how the Department of Public Works handled the E. coli contamination in West Baltimore just wrapped up at City Hall. The council was demanding answers from DPW on why the public wasn't informed sooner about the possible health risk in the water. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker was there. She joins us live from City Hall with more on what was talked about today. Maxine?
Well, Mary, there was a lot of outrage over the apparent lack of communication that weekend from the Department of Public Works, and they admit they could have done a better job and are going to make changes moving forward. But the council says it's just too late. DPW says they first tested that water during routine testing Friday, September 2nd. And this timeline is very important. They spent a lot of time going over this today. By Saturday, they said they had a positive test and resampled the water. By Sunday, DPW had 3 confirmed positive tests of E. coli. They began flushing hydrants and notified the Maryland Department of the Environment, but DPW Director Jason Mitchell says the public was still not notified. Mitchell says MDE approved an outreach strategy plan Sunday night, and a Sandtown nursing home was notified. Yet it wasn't until 7:43 Monday morning the public was notified on Twitter and Nextdoor, only those platforms that all council members want to know why they chose those platforms to notify the public and why wait so long.
Why we're here is because of the way that it was handled. The most critical time in a crisis is those first 24 hours. And frankly, I'm disgusted on how those first 24 hours was handled.
I am extremely disappointed by the unclear and inconsistent communication, as well as the low resolution map that came from DPW. In the first 48 hours of this water contamination event. I am especially disappointed that this has happened in West Baltimore.
Jason Mitchell, DPW's new director, insists they met all regulatory requirements when it came to notifying the public. Yet Councilman Eric Costello believes they did not meet the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act by not notifying the public within 24 hours. There was a lot of back and forth over that. Mary?
Still so many questions out there. The biggest one, really, have they pinpointed the source of the E. coli yet?
So they haven't been able to pinpoint the source yet. They say they may never be able to pinpoint just one source, and it could take weeks for them to really get to the bottom of it. The health department saying today that no one has reported any illnesses from E. coli in that community, but there was testimony from one woman virtually who said that she was sick and others in her community were sick. We'll have much more coming up at 5, but live for now from City Hall, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Well, Fox 45 News questioned Mayor Scott about the city's response to the E. coli contamination.
But it seems to be that it's a department plagued with problems, perhaps mismanaged. And I know that a lot of people we've talked to say that they want to see some sort of accountability when it comes to how this, especially this situation, was handled. Communication seemed to be bungled. How do you plan to make sure that the community sees that someone is held accountable for this?
So again, Mackenzie, there was no misbundling of communication. You weren't here the other day, but we laid that out, that we follow the protocol of how you communicate and how you have to, MD has to say to DPW, yes, you can say this at this time. That was followed. We're going to follow every rule and every regulation. And when you're talking about an issue like this, again, this wasn't something that DPW mismanaged. They found out the water had this in it because they did the testing. This wasn't someone else telling us.
So you're satisfied with how the situation was handled top to bottom from everyone involved?
So I haven't even had a chance to breathe yet, Mackenzie. You should ask me that question in about 2 or 3 days as I go back and do analysis myself.
Well, right now, we know there are residents who say they still don't trust the water. Yesterday, we were in West Baltimore as some residents complained about why the city is no longer handing out bottled water. The city says they're storing the water for future emergencies.
There's a whole bunch of water out here, cases and so I don't know.
They got the water just sitting there. Why the people can't get water?
Well, we also met Denise Knight, who lives in Harlem Park. She called on the mayor to come and drink the water at her home to assure residents that it is safe.
I would like for the mayor to drink this water. And if he like, he can come over and have a glass of water with me.
Well, Mayor Scott has declined that request. Tonight, our Keith Daniels will be heading to Ms. Knight's house. We will be testing her water for E. coli. You can watch that report tonight at 10. And that brings us to our question of the day. Who would you trust to fix the Department of Public Works? Mayor Brandon Scott, the City Council, both or neither? We just opened the poll. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in. Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby's trial has been delayed, and we learned late today it will not happen until next spring.
Jeff Abel is live downtown with the very latest on this. And Jeff, I think everybody's very surprised at how long it's going to take to get this going.
It has been one big tug of war down here this afternoon. In fact, the perjury trial as it stands now of Marilyn Mosby is set to start in 6 more months. That's 6 more months. Mosby and her legal team just left the courtroom after about a 2-hour hearing going over potential trial dates. The hearing has been they've been in the middle of a tug of war all afternoon, trying to reschedule and find time to reschedule this case. As you know, the trial was set to begin on Monday, but yesterday the judge agreed to postpone the case because of issues with the disclosure of evidence and exhibits. Today, both sides now have agreed to a March 27 trial date. That is more than 6 months away. Today, Mosby's legal team, however, did prep the judge, put out a warning that such a lengthy delay could cause changes and even possible further delays in this case. But right now, as it stands, Marilyn Mosby now set to stand trial on March 27. We're live at the federal courthouse. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. As Mosby left court yesterday, Ms. Mosby, her attorney, A. Scott Bolden, said that he strongly disagreed with the delay.
And they've told us repeatedly they didn't want experts, they didn't need experts, and now on the eve of trial, they report to the court on the record that they're going to use experts. All right? If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bullshit. Right?
Moments ago in court, Bolden apologized for those comments as prosecutors sought a gag order. A decision on that request will not be made until after October 7th, which is also the deadline for Mosby's team to disclose more information on the witnesses that they want to call.
For 15 years, Democratic Congressman John Sarbanes has represented Maryland's 3rd congressional district. In November, he will be facing Republican candidate Yuripsi Morgan. She is now calling on Sarbanes to debate her.
We have politicians whose job it is to convince us, to convince the women behind me, to convince you out there listening that they deserve your vote. When they feel so entitled that they don't even want to communicate with the opposing party, that's not democracy.
Well, Fox 45 News reached out to Congressman Sarbanes. In an email, he said, "My campaign includes participation in candidate forums and community discussions where my opponent and I can share our views on how to best serve the voters of the 3rd congressional district."
Meantime, for the first time, Maryland's gubernatorial candidates squaring off last night. Democratic nominee Wes Moore and Republican Dan Cox kicking off debate season with discussions centering on education and child care. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor breaks down some of the key takeaways. Rebecca.
Yeah, while it wasn't technically a formal debate since they appeared at separate times, both still spoke for about 45 minutes each on the issues. Sponsored by the nonprofit group Maryland Family Network, the virtual forum focused on how the candidates plan to support our state's children and their families. Both candidates agree more money should be spent on education in our state, but their views on child care and paid family leave is where they clash. Specifically, they disagree on the handling of the state's new Time to Care Act. It's currently set to take effect in 2025. The act would offer all Maryland workers up to 12 weeks of paid time off for family and medical leave. Moore says he's all for it.
When you have the fact that Maryland ranks 7th for the most expensive childcare inside the country and with costs that are exceeding that of in-state college tuition, we know we have a system that is functionally ruptured and needs to get fixed.
Meanwhile, Cox previously voted against the bill and wants to add some stipulations, saying affected businesses should be offered a dollar-for-dollar tax credit.
Because the incentive needs to be there. If you just crush the small business community with a mandate, with an unfunded mandate, you won't actually provide more childcare access or time at home with the child. You'll actually cancel the jobs.
Now, the two also had opposing opinions when it comes to what should be done with the state's projected surplus. I'll have more on that coming up at 5.
So, Rebecca, this was the first time that they faced off, but it will not be the last. There is another debate coming up just around the corner, right?
Yeah, that's right. Their next meeting will be the first official debate on a wide range of topics. It's set for October 12th, so about a month from today. In studio, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. A massive strike could have taken a major toll on our economy. How railroad workers and companies were able to come together at the 11th hour and get a deal done.
Consumer spending remains strong, but mortgages are at their highest rate in more than a decade. I'm Atrell Nashar with the latest economic news impacting you.
And we're looking at a nice and dry weekend, but we are talking a change in humidity. Tomorrow should be nice and pleasant. Then it gets more humid and warmer as we continue the weekend. We're looking at the upper 80s by Sunday, and it gets even hotter after that. I'll let you know how hot of temperatures you can expect coming up in my full forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Last night was a historic night for rail labor. We're very proud of what was accomplished. We wanted to take a few minutes or a few seconds and thank Secretary Marty Walsh, Deputy Secretary Julie Sue, and definitely President Joe Biden, everybody pulling together to make sure that we could get our members what they deserve.
Rail workers and companies have reached a deal to avoid a massive strike. President Biden says large freight railroads and unions representing 60,000 workers have reached a tentative labor agreement. Now, the move comes less than 24 hours away from a deadline to reach a deal before workers would have gone on strike.
This is a win for tens of thousands of rail workers and for their dignity and the dignity of their work. It's a recognition of that. During these early, dark, uncertain days of the pandemic, they showed up so every American could keep going.
A strike could have hurt the economy by interrupting cargo shipments, food supplies, and long-distance Amtrak routes.
In April, the U.S. economy added more than 400,000 jobs with an unemployment rate of 3.6%. Typically, that would indicate an overall healthy economy, but now it is up against high inflation and Americans' declining view of economic conditions. National correspondent Adnan Syed has a closer look.
American spending is holding up in the fight against inflation, but not by much. Retail sales in August better than expected, up 0.3% from July, driven by auto sales. Spending at bars and restaurants and on groceries is also strong. National Retail Federation Chief Economist Jack Kleinhens.
The consumer has been resilient. I think they have a willingness to spend. And the important thing is they have the ability to spend.
For many, spending more on food isn't a choice. They have to keep up with inflation. Moody's Analytics estimates inflation is costing households about $460 per month.
The food is just ridiculous. It's just so expensive.
Mr. President. On Thursday, President Biden brushing off concerns it will get worse after boasting a tentative rail agreement that spares supply chains from a major blow.
Mr. President, grocery prices are up over 13%. What do you tell struggling Americans?
Rail's moving, it's not going to go up.
A new Economist YouGov poll shows Americans aren't as confident. 69% say they expect inflation in 6 months to be higher or the same as it is now. 18% say lower, 13% are not sure. Some good inflation news this week. Wholesale prices dipping slightly in August, but the benefits likely won't be noticed by consumers for a while.
Many goods are already on shelves of retailers, and they've already begun to stock up for the holiday season.
New signs the private sector's mood is souring. The Business Roundtable's latest CEO Economic Outlook Index shows executives lowering expectations for hiring, sales, and capital investment. All of this sets up an economy likely to be in a state of touch and go for the foreseeable future. In Washington, I'm Adnan Syed reporting.
Well, the numbers are in. And this year's Maryland State Fair saw record attendance.
Yeah, more than 588,000 people visited the fair. That is a 16% increase. The fair also saw an increase in livestock exhibits and an all-time gross income for fair attractions. The fair this year moved to a 3-weekend format instead of the traditional 12 straight days. Fair officials saying that they believe that contributed to the success, and preparation for next year's fair is already underway.
Plus, it was the post-pandemic. We're going to the fair. We're going to have a great time, right?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
It was raining on the day I was supposed to go, so I didn't make it. But my kids went anyways, and they loved it in the rain.
They didn't mind the rain.
Yes.
Wow. Well, you know, that's something we don't have much of now. We really started the week with a lot of rain, but we're talking about a dry spell, and that's going to continue even as we continue into next week. So if you like the dry weather, if you don't like the rain, you are in luck. We've got more of where this dry weather came from. It's also been pretty comfortable with temperatures close to average. Right now we sit at 79 with plenty of sunshine over Baltimore. Winds are out of the northeast around 8 miles per hour, so we've got a nice and light breeze. Across the rest of the state, notice we've got sunny skies throughout the entire state. We're actually seeing our highest temperature near Salisbury around 80 degrees right now. We've got the 60s over in Oakland, but overall it's been a nice and pleasant afternoon, not too humid. As we continue to see numbers fall overnight, we'll drop to the 50s, some areas even in the 60s, especially toward the Bay in southern Maryland. Then as we head into the afternoon, we're looking at another warm day with temperatures just a little bit warmer. Highs will be around 82. Then those numbers keep rising over the weekend, 84 by Saturday. And then we're looking at the upper 80s, 88 on Sunday. So a hot day as we continue on. Tomorrow, it's very pleasant. Then we've got that summer-like heat returning. That starts on Sunday, and it gets even hotter throughout the work week. As we move into the rest of the week, we're still talking that dry pattern. It's not until late next week where we could see some rain. Overnight will stay nice and clear with temperatures falling to the 50s. Around 7 a.m. looks great outside. Then as we head into the afternoon, still looking at plenty of sunshine. High pressure builds over our region. That's going to keep us dry and it keeps our dew points low. That means that it won't feel too humid. But as that high pressure departs, more clouds begin to move in on Saturday. And it also starts to get a little warmer and a little more sticky outside. So you'll notice that change in humidity. We're also keeping watch on Tropical Storm Fiona. That system expected to impact some of the Caribbean islands before making a northern turn. We'll have to watch that system as it moves over the islands. 57 for the low temperature tonight with clear and quiet conditions. Then highs tomorrow around 82. A great way to start the weekend. It won't be too humid outside, but the temperatures and the humidity crank up as we head into Saturday and then into Sunday for the Ravens home opener. 88 for the high, so it will be a hot one. Make sure that you're practicing heat safety. 90 on Monday, and then we're still seeing those temperatures in the upper 80s even as we head into Thursday, the start of fall. So we are looking at a warm pattern as we move forward. Back to you.
All right, Adnan Syed's murder conviction, which led to the hit podcast Serial, will likely be vacated. Why? Some say this could be a political move for an entirely separate case. But first, victims of the massacre in Uvalde now have friends with them all the time. How some four-legged friends are helping the students heal. On the road to recovery, a handful of survivors of the Uvalde school tragedy now have full-time companions at their side. Fox San Antonio's Robert Price introduces us to the dog trainer making it happen, offering her services for free.
Here, give me a beer.
Flirts, the Belgian Malinois, knows the drill.
Get it, get that beer. Good job. Shut the door. Place.
Same goes for Kit, the corgi.
High five. Good job.
Two of the pros at Dog Training Elite in San Antonio.
Green light.
Now meet their newest clients. A husky, 2 doodles, plus a lab and golden retriever.
Red light.
Service dogs in training here at Uvalde Memorial Park.
This is a community that's hurting, and there's nobody who needs it more than this community right now.
The dogs and the training donated free of charge.
Red light.
To people directly impacted by the Uvalde school tragedy.
So we have 2 students who were in adjacent classrooms, a EMT who was on scene, a nurse who was also a mother of a student, and we have a grandmother who lost a child in the shooting. We also have a school counselor who's hoping that after completion of training, the dog can actually be on campus in Uvalde.
Owner Whitley Cheatham, a former paramedic in nearby Hondo, used to work with people who responded to Robb Elementary the day of the shooting. Now she and her staff will spend the next 6 months coming to Uvalde on their off days for training sessions with these 6 families and their dogs.
Being able to give back in this way helps scratch that itch that I was concerned I might miss by not being a first responder.
For now, they're starting with obedience training.
Speak.
Building their skills week by week.
Roll. So that their dog can give them a tool to mitigate or migrate back into the community without the symptoms of their trauma.
The dogs staying at their owner's side in their home throughout the whole process.
The families reported that just having the dog there is already providing comfort. Give me a high five. Even though they're in training and they're not a fully trained service dog, they're still providing therapy to their owners as they learn this process. And that bond is something that we can't train.
Red light.
Hoax threats send schools into lockdown across California. Why these calls have communities on edge tonight? And the city's crime crisis is also playing out in schools. Ahead, Project Baltimore investigates a shift in policy when it comes to student discipline and a spike in violence.
Project Baltimore is sponsored by the Snyder Law Group. Call 410 the Firm.
While Marilyn Mosby has to wait to face a jury in her federal fraud and perjury trial, but that is not stopping her from making a high-profile decision while she remains in office. Now, Mosby announced her office is trying to vacate Adnan Syed's conviction. He's the man convicted of killing Hae-Min Lee. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains how the timing of Mosby's decision is raising questions about the motive.
Adnan Syed's case gripped the country following the podcast Serial, and then was the focus of several books and other podcasts later. More than 20 years after his conviction, Marilyn Mosby says he should get a new trial because of new evidence. But the move comes just hours before jury selection was scheduled to begin in Mosby's own federal case. Chronicled on the hit podcast Serial, Adnan Syed and his case back in the spotlight after Marilyn Mosby in her office filing a motion in court asking a judge to vacate Syed's murder conviction. Mosby says new evidence and two unnamed suspects now identified have resulted in the state lacking confidence in the integrity of the conviction. The timing of the motion itself, though, raising even more questions about Mosby's motives.
It's totally bizarre.
Attorney Kurt Nachman says as Mosby's own future hangs in the balance, she could be using the high-profile move to drum up support or distract from the federal charges against her.
The timing is absolutely curious in terms of coincidental with her trial and attempting to pander to Adnan Syed's followers.
News of the filing broke as Mosby walked into federal court Wednesday, where a judge delayed her trial again. Given the lengthy history of Syed and failed attempts at a new trial,
every single court that's seen his case has rejected his appeals.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute says Mosby's motion was nothing but strategic.
She's had 8 years to review this case, and now she finds compelling evidence after she's been booted from office and after the federal court is going forward with her trial. It's not a coincidence that Marilyn Mosby is doing something that's in her best interest.
As Mosby's trial is pushed again, the calendar gets closer to when she will be out of a job.
She's lost the election. She certainly wants to move on with her life.
Her lead defense attorney, A. Scott Bolden, already talking about how Mosby will soon be unemployed and without income.
She's got a family. She's lost an election. She needs income after January 6th, as you all well know.
With speculation swirling behind motives.
Ms. Mosby, was the Syed case a distraction from you for this personal matter?
Marilyn Mosby herself staying tight-lipped about the driving force behind her news-making decision. More details about when or if Adnan Syed will get a new trial have yet to be released. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Federal agents have joined the search for an accused arsonist. Here's Alexa Ashwell with a preview into tonight's Maryland's Most Wanted.
Yes, Brielle, the U.S. Marshal Service now joining the search for this Baltimore woman. She's accused of setting fire to a gas station after an argument with a clerk.
The greatest concern here is that to public safety. Property can be replaced, but a life cannot. If an individual is willing to start a fire next to another human being, that obviously shows they have a disregard for human life. And so as a result, they should be considered dangerous. In this case, there's no doubt that individual, at least at the time, was mentally unstable, and we need to make sure that this person is taken into custody.
What officials say the argument was about, the other crimes this woman is accused of committing, and the reward being offered, plus a duo now in custody after tips from viewers. That's tonight on Maryland's Most Wanted. Back to you.
Baltimore is on pace to see an 8th straight year with more than 300 murders, and this makes our city one of the deadliest in America.
As Project Baltimore's Chris Pabst explains, it's become clear that schools are not immune to the violence.
Project Baltimore has heard from teachers.
Have you ever been attacked by a student?
Numerous times. Many times.
Students.
A girl just hit me, and you were right there. I came to you to avoid the situation.
And parents.
She has been physically harmed at school. She got slapped across the face once. She got a death threat twice.
Each one concerned about the level of violence in Baltimore City schools.
Do you think schools have become less safe over the past 10 years?
Yes. Yes.
We even spoke with 2 city school police officers who in January asked to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation, but they wanted their message heard.
If there's no discipline, the child's going to do it over and over again because they haven't learned anything.
We have a victim who is a student here at Merville High School.
On September 2nd, 17-year-old Jeremiah Brogdon was shot and killed outside of Mergenthaler High School. Police say Brogdon got into a confrontation with a student from another school who pulled a gun. When these 2 officers spoke with us in January, they tried to blow the whistle, saying the violence on school property is getting worse, even if the data doesn't show it.
And disappointing because you're only making a statement to appease the people when you're not taking care of the problem.
From 2008 to 2018, the number of students arrested in city schools plummeted by 98%. In 2008, 971 students were arrested. 10 years later, it was just 18. These whistleblowers say arrests are down, not because schools are safer, but because school police have been told not to arrest students, even for more serious crimes like burglary and assault.
City schools is trying to keep arrest numbers down.
That's correct.
Why?
Politics, sir. To me, that's fruitful.
In 2017, FOX45 asked City Schools Chief of Police, Akil Ham, about the decrease in arrests. At the time, he told us his officers could be more effective in stopping crimes if they build relationships with students instead of arresting them for lower-level offenses.
We're not going to arrest all of the children. We're going to build positive relationships with kids. We're going to nurture kids.
But it's not just arrests that are significantly down. We can see a similar drop in suspensions. In 2007, more than 17,000 city school students were suspended for a variety of reasons, from fights to bringing a weapon to school. By 2020, that number was down to just about 4,500.
You're not teaching people or kids that it's not okay to burglarize, it's not okay to have a fight.
City schools will not do a current interview to discuss school violence. In January, we were told the district has implemented an intentional multifaceted strategy that has resulted in fewer student arrests and been held up as a national model. Months after issuing that statement, news broke that city schools confiscated 15 guns during the school year, the most ever, according to the police union. Then, to begin this school year, Brogdon was killed after dismissal, walking out of school. The boy who killed him, according to police, had a prior offense. But as a minor, the details have not been released.
I think that is ludicrous, and it's sad. They should be arrested and processed.
These officers say students who don't face consequences now will be more likely to commit serious crimes in the future, furthering the city's epidemic of violence.
There's always one bad apple. And if you don't correct that apple, it's going to continue to spiral in a negative way.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Well, violence in schools is a problem across the nation. 3 Central Texas schools are on high alert after threats are made, causing an increased insecurity. Thorndale Superintendent Adam Ivey says a 7th grade student alerted their parents about a threat on Snapchat. Police and other agencies started tracking it down to find out who made it. Police were able to track down the person, who they say was someone in the community, through an IP address. Well, Bullard High School in Fresno, California was on lockdown as it received a call for an active shooter. Minutes after officers arrived, police, though, confirmed it was a false report.
The person who made the call stated that 2 suspects were inside the school with AR-15 rifles, and they were actively shooting students. That there were students injured and that many students were locked inside classrooms to protect themselves. And they made entry within 4 minutes. Another 4 minutes passed, and they were able to confirm that there was, in fact, no active shooter at the school, no one hurt, no guns, no shots fired whatsoever.
At least 6 other school districts across California got similar hoax calls. In the state of California, if caught, the caller could be punished with up to a year in jail and a $1,000 fine.
The late Congressman Elijah Cummings receives a major honor from his House colleagues. Fellow lawmakers unveiled his official portrait at the Capitol complex. It's hanging in the House Committee on Oversight and Reform's hearing room. He chaired that committee. Cummings represented the state of Maryland for more than 20 years. He died in 2019, and he was a civil rights advocate known for reaching across the aisle.
We are here for somebody who reached his hand, his heart, his head, and lifted so many millions up.
A letter from President Biden was read at the event saying the portrait will mean so much to millions of Americans who adored and revered Cummings. May his legacy continue to inspire us all. September 15th through October 15th will be with Hispanic Heritage Month in Maryland. Governor Larry Hogan tweeting out this proclamation this morning. He says this is a way to, quote, honor and celebrate the contributions of Hispanic Marylanders for all they do to make ours a stronger, more vibrant state.
Maryland's governor's race features 2 very different candidates. What they say is their vision for the state after the November election.
And on average, our last day of temperatures at or above 90 is on September 9th, but we're looking at temperatures close to that number next week. I'll let you know just how hot it could get coming up in my full forecast.
It is a typical 3-bedroom Baltimore row home in Park Heights under development, but why do online listings say that it was sold for over $700,000? It's raising the suspicions of at least one community leader who's now demanding answers.
The neighborhood, the 3000 block of Garrison Avenue in Central Park Heights.
These houses sold for about $140,000 to $160,000.
And one house stands out.
I was outraged.
Will Hanna says not for what it looks like, but for what it was sold for.
$785,000.
This property worth $785,000.
I said, well, this must be a mansion in the middle of Park Heights.
Hannah leads Park Heights community-based development, part of their mission to ensure affordable housing remains in the area. But it was this listing that blew them away.
You're pricing the properties outside of what this community can actually afford. The average median income in this neighborhood is $29,000 per household.
Hannah doesn't believe the property was actually sold for $750,000, but to be allowed to be recorded as such, he says, points to a failure in the city system. It wouldn't require some proof for what this house was appraised for.
They're saying they can get more for the property now, and they're charging more for rents. They're charging more for sale of property.
He says about more than just overpriced real estate.
Why would the city say that it bought property for $500,000?
That was Hannah in June, raising similar questions about other Park Heights properties, vacant, near falling down city-owned houses listed online as purchased for over $500,000. The city later told us that was the price for several acquired liens on foreclosed homes that had been bundled. This the price for 19 different homes.
Whether it was intentional, whether it was a mistake, whether it was recorded wrong, what it did is it set precedents. It hurts people.
Well, Hannah suspects that there could be a redevelopment effort underway heading toward gentrification. That we don't know. The home is occupied, which is why we can't show the exact address. The city just got back to us. We will have their full response on foxbaltimore.com in this story. Well, right now, the city says there are nearly 15,000 vacant buildings. 700 new vacants have been added this year. The city has rehabbed another 700 buildings. And so far this year, 171 vacants have been torn down.
It's been a gorgeous day, and we've got more of the nice weather heading our way as we make it into the weekend. 79 for the current temperature and sunny over Baltimore. Winds are out of the northeast around 8 miles per hour, so we've got a nice and light breeze outside. That's just adding to the comfort. Across the state, we're mainly seeing temperatures in the 70s. We've got a couple spots in the 80s, Salisbury, Laurel, Cumberland. All are hot spots at this time, but overall, it's been pretty nice everywhere. And overnight, these numbers will fall to the 50s. Closer to the Bay, we'll see the low 60s and in southern Maryland. So you may need a light jacket as you head outside in the morning, but you can shed the layers by the afternoon. We're expecting highs in the 70s and the 80s. Will be slightly warmer than today's temperatures, but it's going to feel a little more pleasant outside. Notice dew points today in that comfortable range. Tomorrow it feels even better, even drier. We'll be in that pleasant range. Then Saturday, still pretty nice. But as we head into next week, it actually starts to feel a little more sticky. Not only will it be more humid, but it's also going to be hotter, feeling a little more like summer. As we continue overnight, skies stay nice and clear, and we'll wake up to plenty of sunshine around 7 a.m. Temperatures start in the 50s and the 60s. And then as we head into the afternoon, we're still looking at lots of sunshine. We'll have high pressure over the region. That's going to keep us dry, and it'll keep those dew points low, meaning that it'll feel pretty nice outside. Then once that departs, we've got more humidity coming on Saturday, and we're also talking a few more clouds as we start the day. But it does look like we'll have some more sunshine by the afternoon. We're also keeping watch on Tropical Storm Fiona. That's expected to move toward a few of the Caribbean islands before making a northward turn. We'll have to continue to monitor that system, but as it moves over land, we do expect it to weaken a little bit. 57 for the low temperature tonight with clear and quiet and cool conditions. Then highs around 82 tomorrow. That is slightly above average for this time of year, but it's still going to feel nice and comfortable thanks to our low humidity. 84 with lots of sunshine on Saturday. Then we're in the upper 80s on Sunday, and again, it starts to feel a little more sticky. If you're heading to the Ravens home opener, just make sure that you're staying hydrated and dressing for the heat. 90 on Monday, and temperatures still stay pretty hot after that. As we make our way through the rest of the week, we stay in the upper 80s, and that includes on Thursday for the start of fall. Back to you.
Well, the fall season is just around the corner, as you know, and right now is the best time to harvest fresh fruits. Shaw Orchards is helping you with the pickings. Be More Lifestyle host Mark Clark has our story from Whitehall.
It's Mark Clark out at Shaw Orchards, and here we have Barron, the owner of Shaw Orchards, and it's picking season. It's just around the corner, right, Baron?
Yeah, that's right. It's time for pumpkins and apples.
I love it. And so the thing about Shaw Orchards is more than just pumpkins and apples. You guys do a whole bunch of other things. Tell us about it.
Yeah, we started Memorial Day with strawberries, or around Memorial Day. Then we move on into blueberries and cherries and raspberries, and every week, every month, there's something new to pick around here. And we keep that picking going on all the way until now when it's pumpkin and apple season.
There's no better way to have a great family experience than come out to the pumpkin patch, snatch up one of these big fellas right here, and have fun with the family. Thank you for spending time with us. Mark Clark, Fox 45 News.
Coming up at 5, the Baltimore City Council demanding more transparency in the response to the water crisis, why they say the city failed its residents.
A bit of a strategy shift today on the monkeypox virus from the CDC. I'm Liz Bonus. We share what they want all of us to know to prevent this virus. It is just ahead.
The CDC is launching the next steps today in the fight against monkeypox. Medical reporter Liz Bonus shares why they are especially trying to reach people of diverse ethnic backgrounds.
Hey there, everybody. The CDC sharing a bit of a strategy shift today. With more than 22,000 cases of monkeypox confirmed in the United States, there are still concerns that those who need the vaccine or preventive therapies are not getting them.
We know there's a lot more to do, especially for Black and brown communities.
After weeks of focusing on providing monkeypox vaccines at large events of high-risk populations, the next phase of the monkeypox vaccine equity pilot program has just launched.
That focuses on smaller projects that help us reach the communities we need to link to monkeypox vaccines, education, testing, and treatment.
The CDC now asking local health departments that have been on the front lines of targeting people of all age groups, populations, and ethnicities for coronavirus vaccines to submit applications for additional monkeypox vaccines. The doses would be based on local and national data,
which would not only reach those at high risk of getting or spreading the virus, but also reach those less likely to be vaccinated against it or who have barriers to access. They will give special consideration to those who are Black, Hispanic, gay, bisexual, or transgender.
That's where we need to do the outreach. We've become accustomed to doing that outreach. We've learned some lessons from how we've done it during COVID, of course.
Dr. Anthony Fauci also saying they're studying monkeypox preventative treatment medicine in those with diverse ethnic backgrounds around the world and here in the U.S.
So the plan will involve more than 60 clinical sites in the United States with a target enrollment of 530 people.
Your own doctor, of course, can direct you to where you need to go to get some of these preventative measures. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Now back to you.
We are in for a gorgeous afternoon and great for any outdoor activities that you may have planned. Tomorrow, 82 for the high, and it's going to feel pretty pleasant with low humidity and lots of sunshine. Then we start to see those numbers rise on Saturday. Highs will be around 84 with lots of sunshine again. Not too bad with humidity, but it does get a little bit sticky heading into Sunday. High temperatures reach the upper 80s, and we could be looking at heat indices in the 90s, but it gets even hotter after that. I'll let you know just how hot it could get coming up in my Weather Authority forecast in about 20 minutes. Back to you.
All right, coming up on Fox 45 News at 5, a national strike that could have raised prices higher, just barely avoided. What it took to keep the country's trains running. A new start date, but it's months away. The latest from court on when Marilyn Mosby's trial will begin.
It is 5 o'clock. I'm Mary Bubala.
And I'm Riel Creighton in for Kai Jackson. Our top stories, a new trial date for Marilyn Mosby, the latest developments from court today.
An agreement to avoid a massive rail strike, the details in the deal that's keeping the nation's trains running.
They say the city failed its residents. We're hearing from Baltimore City Council members who are demanding more transparency in the city's response to the water crisis.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
We are on top of two big stories in a city in crisis. The first between Marilyn Mosby and the federal government. Tonight, when Marilyn Mosby will now have to answer to 4 federal charges.
Who knew what and when? Baltimore City's council holding a hearing this afternoon into last week's E. coli contamination. We have live team coverage of these two big stories.
Let's get to Jeff Abel live tonight with the latest in the federal trial of Marilyn Mosby. Jeff, what happened in court today?
Well, just a few minutes ago, the judge ordered a 6-month delay in the perjury trial of State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. As you know, Mosby and her legal team have been here at the courthouse. They left a few moments ago, just a few minutes after following a 2-hour hearing and a tug-of-war over when this case should be rescheduled. As you know, the trial was set to begin on Monday, but delays in the disclosure of evidence forced the delay of the case. Right now, Mosby is set to stand trial on March the 27th. And on the way out of the courthouse, we asked her legal team a minute ago about the delay.
It is what it is. You got the court's order, and we're going to follow it.
You wanted a speedy trial.
Yeah, this is as fast as the court could do it.
Well, earlier today, Mosby's legal team apologized to the judge for making some very pointed comments outside the courthouse yesterday. Because of that, prosecutors have asked the judge to issue a gag order in this case, but so far, the judge has not done so. We're live at federal court. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Well, as Jeff mentioned, as Mosby left the court yesterday, her attorney, A. Scott Bolden, said that he strongly disagreed with the delay.
And they've told us repeatedly they didn't want experts, they didn't need experts, and now on the eve of trial, they report to the court on the record that they're going to use experts. All right? If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bullshit. Right?
In court, Bolden apologized for those comments as prosecutors sought a gag order. A decision on that request will not be made until after October 7th, which is also the deadline for Mosby's team to disclose more information on the witnesses that they want to call.
Well, we're going to take a look at some of the charges that Mosby is facing. Count 1 is perjury. Federal prosecutors say Mosby lied when she took out $36,000 from her City of Baltimore employee retirement account, claiming it was due to financial hardship due to the pandemic. And as you can see, investigators say she checked this box right here, indicating one of those possibilities. Now, count 2 is for a false statement on a loan application. Prosecutors allege Mosby signed an application for a $490,000 mortgage on a Florida home, failing, though, to disclose she owed significant amounts of federal taxes. Count 3 is for perjury for another COVID hardship withdrawal. This time, prosecutors say she checked the box again. It's right here. And that she received $45,000 from her retirement account. The indictment claims Mosby made more money in 2020 than she did in 2019. And count 4, a false statement on a loan application for another Florida home. This one in Longboat Key. The feds say Mosby again failed to disclose that tax lien.
A fiery informational hearing into how the Department of Public Works handled the E. coli contamination in West Baltimore just wrapped up at City Hall. The council was demanding answers from DPW on why the public wasn't informed sooner about the possible health risk in the water. Fox 45's Maxine Stryker is there and joins us live now from City Hall with more.
Well, Riel, there was a lot of outrage over the apparent lack of communication over that weekend from DPW, and they themselves admit they could have done a better job. Mistakes were made, but the council members say at this point it's too late as there's a lot of distrust now in the water system.
The most critical time in a crisis is those first 24 hours. And frankly, I'm disgusted on how those first 24 hours was handled.
Disgust, disappointment, and frustration. Councilman Yitzi Schleifer and his colleagues did not hold back Thursday, questioning the Department of Public Works about the E. coli water crisis that unfolded in West Baltimore over Labor Day weekend.
I'm extremely disappointed by the unclear and inconsistent communication, as well as the low resolution map that came from DPW. In the first 48 hours of this water contamination event. I am especially disappointed that this has happened in West Baltimore.
Council members in unison expressing the public and media were left in the dark as a result of the agency's poor communication.
I think
the city failed. I think the entire city failed with this.
DPW says they first tested the water during routine testing Friday, September 2nd. By Saturday, they had a positive test and resampled the water. By Sunday, DPW says they had 3 confirmed positive tests of E. coli. They began flushing hydrants and notified the Maryland Department of the Environment. But DPW Director Jason Mitchell says the public was still not notified.
There was no communication to the public on Sunday about this.
Mitchell says MDE approved an outreach strategy Sunday night, and a Sandtown nursing home was notified. Yet it wasn't until 7:43 Monday morning that the public was notified on Twitter and Nextdoor. After that, they didn't post an update for nearly 9 hours.
Why bury it in a tweet?
Councilman Schleifer questioning why DPW only put the word out on Twitter and Nextdoor, social media sites not everyone is utilizing.
How long would it have taken them to copy and paste that information and post it on these other platforms?
It doesn't take long, as you can imagine, but I think to your point, and to my opening remarks and my closing remarks, there was a lot of lessons learned, right? And communication was a huge lesson.
Mitchell insists they met regulatory requirements but could have done better. Yet Councilman Eric Costello believes they failed to meet the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act by not alerting the public within 24 hours.
DPW was in violation of the requirements to provide notification.
Mitchell says MDE was notified within the time limit, still insisting they will improve moving forward.
We did struggle the first 24 hours. And I said that earlier, and I will say that again. We struggled. We needed help.
Well, Mitchell says tonight they are looking to bring in new talent to their communications team, but they still have not identified the source of contamination and say they may never be able to identify a single source. It could take weeks. Reporting live from City Hall, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Maxine, thank you. Well, Fox 45 News questioned Mayor Scott about the city's response to the E. coli contamination.
But it seems to be that it's a department plagued with problems, perhaps mismanaged. And I know that a lot of people we've talked to say that they want to see some sort of accountability when it comes to how this, especially this situation, was handled. Communication seemed to be bungled. How do you plan to make sure that the community sees that someone is held accountable for this?
So again, Mackenzie, there was no misbundling of communication. You weren't here the other day, but we laid that out, that we follow the protocol of how you communicate and how you have to, MD has to say to DPW, yes, you can say this at this time. That was followed. We're going to follow every rule and every regulation. And when you're talking about an issue like this, again, this wasn't something that DPW mismanaged. They found out the water had this in it because they did the testing. This wasn't someone else telling us.
So you're satisfied with how the situation was handled top to bottom from everyone involved?
So I haven't even had a chance to breathe yet, Mackenzie. You should ask me that question in about 2 or 3 days as I go back and do analysis myself.
Right now, we do know that there are some residents who still say they don't trust the water. Yesterday, we were in West Baltimore as some residents complained about why the city is no longer handing out bottled water. The city says that they're storing the water for future emergencies.
There's a whole bunch of water out here, cases and so I don't know.
They got the water just sitting there. Why the people can't get water?
We also met Denise Knight, who lives in Harlem Park. She called on the mayor to come and drink the water at her house to assure residents that it is safe.
I would like for the mayor to drink this water. And if he he can come over and have a glass of water with me.
Mayor Scott has declined that request. Tonight, our Keith Daniels will be heading to Miss Knight's house. We'll be testing her water for E. coli. You can watch that report tonight at 10. Well, that brings us to our question of the day. Who do you trust, or who would you trust to fix the Department of Public Works? Mayor Brandon Scott, City Council, both or neither? So far, 100% of those who have voted say neither. We want to hear from you. Go to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Well, making headlines, rail workers and companies have reached a deal to avoid a massive strike. President Biden says large freight railroads and unions representing 60,000 workers have reached a tentative labor agreement. The move comes less than 24 hours away from a deadline to reach a deal before workers would have gone on strike. A strike could have hurt the economy by interrupting cargo shipments, food supplies, and long-distance Amtrak routes.
Police have identified the man shot and killed last night in West Baltimore. He's 36-year-old Terrell Davis. Police responded to shots fired at around 7:30 near Harlem Park Elementary School. Terrell was already dead when first responders arrived. Another man was badly wounded. He's listed under serious condition. This marks the 248th murder of the year.
It has been more than 3 weeks since a Canton father died following a violent attack and still no arrests. Alexa Ashwell joins us live with surveillance pictures the department just released. Alexa?
Yes, Mary, the Baltimore Police Department is asking for the public's help in identifying this believed suspect. Take a good look. This person is accused of beating and robbing 60-year-old Victor Malabayabas back in August. It happened on South Kenwood Avenue near Fleet Street. The suspect, we're told, was seen leaving in a 2005 gold Buick Regal.
And Alexa, has the department said...
the Baltimore Police Department.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mary. I asked the Baltimore Police Department if so far they've received any tips about the surveillance pictures. I'm still waiting to hear back. I also reached out to a spokesperson with the family. They were unaware of these surveillance pictures and actually asked me to send them to them. I'm still waiting for any type of response. Of course, following Victor's death, the family called for justice. Police say Victor was giving the suspect a tissue when this attack happened, and surveillance video we watched shows the suspect pulling Victor down his stairs, then appearing to take his wallet, Mary. Of course, anyone with any information is asked to call Baltimore Police. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
This just in, a 16-year-old student at Randallstown High School has been arrested after police say that they brought a handgun into the school. The school says a staff member and a school safety assistant found the student acting suspiciously in the hallway. The school resource officers was called in, and they found that handgun, they say, in the student's backpack. Last year, city schools seized a record number of guns across Baltimore.
Adnan Syed's murder conviction will likely be vacated. Why? Some say this could be a political move for an entirely separate reason.
A bus of migrants delivered to the vice president's home, the latest on the efforts from the state and national leaders to control the crisis at the border.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. Miami's defense will bring the heat to Baltimore, and the Ravens' offense will look to cool them off. More on the adjustments the team has made ahead of Week 2 coming up on Sports Unlimited.
And we've been enjoying nice and cooler fall-like weather, but we're actually looking at the return of hot temperatures, making it feel more like summer. I'll let you know when to expect this warm-up coming up in my Weather Authority forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 17 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Well, you can feel the excitement building in the air. The Baltimore Ravens home opener just days away, and they'll be taking on the Miami Dolphins, who had a strong showing last Saturday.
That's right.
Sunday. Actually,
Yes, Sunday. Rocco DeSangro is live in Owings Mills with the latest on how the team's preparing for this weekend. Rocco, everybody's excited.
Listen, they really are, and they're excited for this because the bank is open on a Sunday, and that's exactly the way this city likes it. In just 3 days, the Ravens will welcome the Miami Dolphins to town, the same team that handed them one of the most shocking losses of the 2021 seasons. And in that 2021 matchup, it was a night game. The Dolphins took a page out of the Remember the Titans book, blitzing the Ravens all night long. Yeah, they blitzed all night. That's the thing. Baltimore really couldn't do anything to slow it down. Lamar Jackson was sacked 4 times and picked off once in a 22-10 loss. And it's something Greg Roman and the Ravens offense could really go without seeing again.
You know, they play cover zero, but they also play a lot of other things, and they want to show you zero, and they don't. They do a nice job with it. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some layers to this game. But it's going to come down to communication, you know, preparation, communication, and execution.
They do a lot of things, not just zero, but they run every other defense under the sun. You know, we're going to have to make sure we talk, figure out who we're going to, and get it done.
So no Ronnie Stanley today at all. He did not participate in practice, so his status for Sunday is up in the air. He was limited yesterday. We'll have an update on some more of those injured guys coming up tonight on Sports Unlimited. For now, live in Owings Mills, Rocco DeSangro for Sports Unlimited.
Rocco, thank you. Oh, look at this. We continue to see your purple pride ahead of Sunday's game. Make sure to keep those pictures coming. Just head to foxbaltimore.com/chime in. We'll be showing your excitement as we count down to the big game. Number 8, yes, Lamar representing there. And I like the black boots to go with it. That's a great outfit overall.
I think so. I'd rock that today, right?
Yeah, put it on. Let's go, Riel. Get that on. The purple jersey and the boots. I like it. I can see you in that, too.
Yeah, I think I would wear that, too. We've got great weather for that. And for the game, though, it's going to heat up. So
Okay, so no boots.
Yeah, maybe not for the game. You might want to hold off on the boots, but we still have that nice fall-like weather to enjoy for one more day, and then heading into the rest of the weekend, it starts to get a little bit hotter. Current temperatures sit at 79 with sunny skies over Baltimore and winds out of the north-northwest around 5 miles per hour. Temperatures across the state are mainly in the upper 70s. We still have 80 degrees in Laurel. That's one of our hot spots right now. But notice, lots of sunshine around the entire state. We'll keep those nice and mostly clear conditions as we head into the night. Temperatures quickly fall to the 50s and the 60s closer to the Bay and in southern Maryland. But we are looking at a cool start. You may want the jackets as you head outside. 59 around 7 a.m. So as kids are heading to the bus stop, again, they may want the layers. But notice by the afternoon, those temperatures in the upper 70s and the low 80s. We're actually looking at numbers close to average, but it is going to feel nice and comfortable. So really just a pleasant day tomorrow and a great way to start the weekend. Then as we head into next week, it gets hotter and it starts to feel a little more like summer with highs closer to the 90s. But we do enjoy a nice and dry pattern. We've been dry for the past few days, and that will stick around as we head into next week. Notice overnight, we stay mostly quiet with nice and clear skies, and we'll wake up to plenty of sunshine around 7 a.m. Temperatures again in the 50s and 60s. Then those numbers reach the 70s and the 80s by the afternoon with mostly sunny skies. High pressure will keep us dry and comfortable, but then as that slides out of our region, we're looking at a few more clouds returning along with a little more humidity heading into Saturday. Now this model shows a few more clouds, but it does look like we'll have lots of sunshine as we do head into Saturday. We're keeping watch on Tropical Storm Fiona. That system's expected to affect some of the Leeward Islands, and then it is expected to move a little bit to the north. We'll have to watch for what happens with that system as it moves over land. It is expected to weaken. 57 for the low temperature tonight with clear and quiet conditions. Then tomorrow, highs will be around 82. That is slightly above average and a little bit warmer than our temperatures today, but we'll have low humidity. It'll feel nice and pleasant. Then things start to warm up as we head into Saturday. 84 for the high, 88 on Sunday for the Ravens home opener. And with the humidity factored in, it'll feel closer to the 90s. Make sure that you are practicing heat safety. 90 on Monday, and then temperatures remain in the upper 80s as we head into the start of fall on Thursday. Back to you.
Thanks, Jasmine. Candidates for governor are giving very different views on the state's future. Hearing from both as they try to win your vote. An EMT threatens to drive an ambulance right into the Inner Harbor if he was sent out on another call. What a former police chief says we need to do to help overworked first responders.
By bus and by plane, migrants arriving in so-called sanctuary cities and states without warning. I'm Christine Frizzell with the very latest on what some are calling a political ploy.
Well, most Americans don't think politicians are informed enough to write policies on abortion. According to a new survey, 7 in 10 adults feel this way, and that includes 70% of Republicans and 74% of Democrats. The findings highlight distrust in the government, especially after the U.S. Supreme Court's reversal of Roe v. Wade put policies in the hands of state and federal lawmakers. It also comes after Democrats' bill to codify abortion rights failed in the Senate. And Republican Senator Lindsey Graham proposed a nationwide 15-week ban on abortion with exceptions. Now, many are also frustrated with the nation's current border crisis. This morning, Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent a busload of migrants to the vice president's home in Washington, D.C. It comes as the White House continues to say it has taken steps to secure the border. Christine Frizzell has the details.
Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, just the latest destination for migrants from Texas.
on a flight funded by Florida.
Our message to them is we are not a sanctuary state, and it's better to be able to go to a sanctuary jurisdiction. And yes, we will help facilitate that transport for you.
Local leaders say migrants were lied to.
A lot of them were told that they were going to be met here with jobs, with housing, and several of the people here have immigration appointments that they thought they were being sent to.
Migrants also dropped off outside of Vice President Kamala Harris's residence in Washington, D.C. One migrant outside asked by Fox News if he thought the border was open.
Yeah, everybody believes that the border is open. It's open because we enter, we come in, free. No problem.
In Chicago, the National Guard has been called in to help with food, shelter, and medical services after busloads of people were sent there. And in New York City, where more than 11,000 asylum seekers have arrived in the last few months. Mayor Eric Adams said this week the city's shelter system is nearing its breaking point. Sending migrants to so-called sanctuary cities and states has been going on for months now, with a brand new poll in Texas showing 52% of people there support the effort. Governor Greg Abbott has said repeatedly it's time for people who live outside of border states to pitch in and help.
It was just Texas and Arizona that bore the brunt of all of the chaos and all the problems that come with it. Now the rest of America is understanding exactly what is going on.
For now, it's clear the crisis is becoming more widespread, with those new to the challenges saying the political play does have some bright spots.
It's pathetic, it is weak, and this island community has shown how strong we are and really shown the best of America.
In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzau.
Right as she's about to go on trial, Marilyn Mosby calls a decades-old murder conviction into question. We're asking experts why Adnan Syed's case is now being revisited. It is bleeding money and doesn't look to be improving. What can be done to help turn a profit in the city's Inner Harbor Hotel? Even if you've gotten a raise, you might still have less money to spend. The concerns from many who are seeing inflation outpace their pay.
While Marilyn Mosby has to wait to face a jury in her federal fraud and perjury trial, that's not stopping her from making high-profile decisions while she remains in office. Mosby announced that her office is trying to vacate Adnan Syed's conviction, the man who was convicted of killing Hyman Lee.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost explains how the timing of Mosby's decision is raising questions about a motive.
Adnan Syed's case gripped the country following the podcast Serial, and then was the focus of several books and other podcasts later. More than 20 years after his conviction, Marilyn Mosby says he should get a new trial because of new evidence. But the move comes just hours before jury selection was scheduled to begin in Mosby's own federal case. Chronicled on the hit podcast Serial, Adnan Syed and his case back in the spotlight after Marilyn Mosby in her office filing a motion in court asking a judge to vacate Syed's murder conviction. Mosby says new evidence and two unnamed suspects now identified have resulted in the state lacking confidence in the integrity of the conviction. The timing of the motion itself, though, raising even more questions about Mosby's motives.
It's totally bizarre.
Attorney Kurt Nachman says as Mosby's own future hangs in the balance, she could be using the high-profile move to drum up support or distract from the federal charges against her.
The timing is absolutely curious in terms of coincidental with her trial and attempting to pander to Adnan Syed's followers.
News of the filing broke as Mosby walked into federal court Wednesday, where a judge delayed her trial again. Given the lengthy history of Syed and failed attempts at a new trial,
every single court that's seen his case has rejected his appeals.
Sean Kennedy with the Maryland Public Policy Institute says Mosby's motion was nothing but strategic.
She's had 8 years to review this case, and now she finds compelling evidence after she's been booted from office and after the federal court is going forward with her trial. It's not a coincidence that Marilyn Mosby is doing something that's in her best interest.
As Mosby's trial is pushed again, the calendar gets closer to when she will be out of a job.
She's lost the election. She certainly wants to move on with her life.
Her lead defense attorney, A. Scott Bolden, already talking about how Mosby will soon be unemployed and without income.
She's got a family. She's lost an election. She needs income after January 6th, as you all well know.
With speculation swirling behind motives.
Ms. Mosby, was the Syed case a distraction from you for this personal matter?
Marilyn Mosby herself staying tight-lipped about the driving force behind her news-making decision.
More details about when or if Adnan Syed will get a new trial have yet to be released. In Baltimore, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
New tonight, a live look at the Hilton Hotel downtown. The hotel is owned by the city of Baltimore, and the city continues to pour more money into it. Last month, in fact, the city committed another $3 million of taxpayer funds to keep the hotel afloat. Now, city leaders have put roughly $16 million into the hotel since the start of the pandemic.
Baltimore borrowed $300 million to build the hotel in the hopes that it would attract more business and events to the nearby convention center. But the city-owned hotel has not been able to turn a profit consistently.
That's right, and many are now asking what is the future of this hotel if it just keeps losing money. Anaban Basu, CEO of the Sage Policy Group, joins us now. Anaban, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, and you're welcome, of course.
Why is the city having such a difficult time turning a profit on this property? I understand the pandemic caused that whole industry to have issues and struggle, but it just seems like taxpayer money is just keeping this thing on its feet.
Well, that's absolutely right. You mentioned it yourself, or somebody mentioned it, $16 million since the onset of the pandemic. That is a lot of money, and it reminds us why often we don't want the public sector to own these kinds of properties. If the private sector does not see fit to develop these types of hotels, then the public sector should probably stay away. But that said, the hotel is now owned by the city. It's a city liability. And I must tell you that there's not expected to be significant operational improvement or performance over the next few years.
Anabar, what do you think the city went wrong in the initial plans for the hotel? I mean, they have it now. What did they do wrong to start?
So many things. I mean, look at the architecture, for instance, right? It does not pay homage to the iconic architecture of Camden Yards. It sort of comes from the Hilton Hotel spare parts bin architecturally. That's one. Second, a lot of discussion around the city has been around marketing of the hotel since inception, that marketing has not been particularly effective. Third, of course, are the challenges of Baltimore City. I mean, this is a convention center hotel. So who does this cater to? Largely groups that are coming from outside of Baltimore who would meet here, conventions. But it's hard for meeting planners to pick Baltimore over other cities, given Baltimore City's challenges. I mean, we love Baltimore, don't get me wrong, but you want people to attend these conventions, and it's tough to get them to come to Baltimore, so you might choose Atlanta or Washington, D.C. or New York City or some other destination, Ocean City, Maryland. And so that's where we are. And that hurts, as it turns out, the convention center's performance, the convention center hotel's performance being the Hilton. So the city is hurting the hotel's performance, the hotel is hurting the city's performance, and round we go.
And so what can be done to right the ship at this point? Can the city get some return on investment? Can they sell it off to a private company?
I was thinking about that. Can it sell it off? But here's the thing. None of us wants to sell an asset when performance is poor. And it should be noted that the city will be having to pay around $500 million in principal and interest until the year 2046. And so who wants to take on that kind of liability, especially because risk of recession is high right now? So what the city needs to do is turn around this performance, increase occupancy rates, increase average room rates, increase free cash flow coming from the hotel. It's going to take time, but if it wants to get out from under this debacle, that's exactly what it needs to do. And then it can sell it before 2046, and then it can be done with it and let the private sector handle the risk.
And we should be sort of an example for other cities to not get into the hotel business. Adnan Basu, thank you so much for your insight tonight. We appreciate it.
Many thanks.
For the first time, Maryland's gubernatorial candidates are squaring off. Democratic nominee Wes Moore and Republican Dan Cox kicking off debate season with discussions centering on child care and education. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor breaks down some of the key moments. Rebecca.
Yeah, well, it wasn't technically a formal debate since they appeared at separate times. Both still spoke for about 45 minutes each on the issues. Both candidates agreeing more money should be spent on education in our state, but their views on child care, paid family leave, and how to spend the state's surplus, that's where they clashed. One example, they disagree on the handling of the state's new Time to Care Act. It's currently set to take effect in 2025. The act would offer all Maryland workers up to 12 weeks of paid time off for family and medical leave. Moore says he's all for it. Meanwhile, Cox wants affected businesses to get a dollar-for-dollar tax credit, something he says would be paid in part using the state's projected surplus.
I think the last thing we want to do is to spend that money with a free-for-all approach. We've got to be financially and fiscally frugal and careful, and making sure that we target the refunds to be tax credits that come back to the people.
Now, Cox also says that money should go towards creating more charter schools and fixing things like Baltimore City's AC units. However, Moore has other plans for the fund. Some of his suggestions include improving public transportation and fully staffing struggling state agencies.
One of the reasons that we have the surplus that we have is because of the massive amount of shortages, staffing shortages that we are seeing in the state government, where we are creating this surplus that's on the backs of workers and that's on the backs of social services. And so we have to be clear about what is the impact of so many of these shortages that we continue to see.
Now, this might have been the first time that these candidates were meeting, but it won't be their last. The two have another showdown scheduled for October 12th. That one will be on a wide range of topics and will allow for actual back-and-forth debate.
Rebecca, the next debate is just a month away, but Cox is still pushing for another meeting before then.
Yeah, that's right. Cox used his closing statements actually to call out Moore's unwillingness to debate him later this month at Morgan State University. Take a listen to what he had to say.
So I would challenge him again, step up, don't run away. Let's listen to the people, and I look forward to continuing that as your next governor.
Moore's campaign has previously said they don't want to draw more attention to what they're calling Cox's radical views and conspiracy theories. In studio, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Some Democrats worry that they may lose the House of Representatives in the November elections. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer reportedly among those now voicing concerns. Punchbowl reporting that Schumer is telling fellow Democrats that they are unlikely to remain in control of the House. The alleged comments came during a private dinner with other members of his caucus. Despite the senator's concerns, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi believes her party will maintain control.
How many times have I told you over the past year and a half plus that the Democrats would hold the House, despite some of the so-called conventional, so-called wisdom in Washington, D.C., saying that in the off year, the president's party always loses Congress or seats. The fact is, that isn't conventional, and it isn't wisdom.
Well, Schumer is giving his party a 60% chance of holding on to the Senate and a 40% chance of doing the same in the House, according to that report.
The U.S. Marshal Service has joined the search for a Baltimore woman accused of setting fire to a gas station after an argument with the clerk.
The greatest concern here is that the public safety. Property can be replaced, but a life cannot. If an individual is willing to start a fire next to another human being, that obviously shows they have a disregard for human life. And so as a result, they should be considered dangerous. In this case, there's note that that individual, at least at the time, was mentally unstable, and we need to make sure that this person is taken into custody.
What the argument was about, the other crimes investigators say this woman is wanted for, and the reward being offered. Alexa Ashwell will have that tonight on Maryland's Most Wanted.
Continuing coverage as staffing shortages have first responders overwhelmed and overworked. It led to some disturbing radio chatter this week with an EMT saying he would drive an ambulance into the harbor if he was sent to another scene. Tom Rogers spoke with a former police chief about what can be done to help.
For the third time, we told you we are out of service per EMS2 for relief. I'm completely prepared to tell my driver to disembark, and I will drive this thing in the inner harbor.
Radio chatter appears to show the desperation and exhaustion of overworked EMS and first responders in Baltimore. As the police department is short hundreds of officers, former police commissioner Ed Norris says overworked first responders equals a dangerous situation for everyone in the city.
Think about all the gunshot wounds, all the heroin overdoses, all the things they have to respond to. They've got to be overwhelmed.
Well, if they're overwhelmed, then that means it puts even more pressure. It's compounded now with the police officers that are showing up for their shifts now have to do with it. If the EMTs are like, we're done, we can't do any more tonight, somebody has to show up.
Yeah, somebody's got to show up, and the problem is, the public probably understands, is that, I've been on the scene before the EMTs on occasion, because you're on patrol. There's a lot more police.
That's why they give officers Narcan.
Right, they give them Narcan. But, when you respond to something that's serious, but gunshot wounds, heart attacks, you're not trained for this. You do your best. We get some training to stop bleeding and things like that, but you need the EMTs there. And the problem is, as you're waiting, it's like an eternity for us, but especially for the people who are in need. Right. So it's really a dangerous situation.
Now, Norris says while finding ways to stop the violence with alternative programs is needed in Baltimore, he says the first priority from the mayor's office should be filling the open police and first responder positions. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
Well, happening today, the start of Hispanic Heritage Month in Maryland. Governor Larry Hogan marking the occasion on Twitter. It runs September 15th through October 15th, and it's a time to honor and celebrate the state's Hispanic residents. The governor says Hispanic members of the community play a critical role in making Maryland a stronger, better place to live. The corn dogs were good and the numbers are in. And this year's Maryland State Fair saw record attendance.
And more than 588,000 people visited the fair. That is a 16% increase. The fair also saw an increase in livestock exhibits and an all-time gross income for fair attractions. The fair this year moved to a 3-weekend format instead of the traditional 12 straight days. Fair officials saying that contributed to the success. Preparation for next year's fair is already underway.
I think that was such a good idea to move it to the weekends, because that's when people are free and you can do it.
Right.
Other time you're getting ready for go back to school and everything.
Exactly.
So I'm glad. And I know the weather was warm, as it always is, and a little rainy on the day you were supposed to go.
It rained me out.
Exactly.
But,
All right, let's turn to our weather forecast.
Well, we started the week with rain, but we've been enjoying nice and dry weather, and that will last us into next week. But the big change that's coming is the heat. If you're heading outside this evening, it looks great to spend on your patio. We've got temperatures falling to the 60s and 70s, and then heading into the weekend, the hot temperatures return. I'll let you know what you can expect coming up in my full forecast.
runaway inflation. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. A new survey breaking down the painful reality involving wages in America.
Americans are suffering from inflation frustration as prices are rising quickly. They're outpacing the gradual increase in workers' pay. That means that many are now in a position where, despite getting a raise, they have less spending power. National correspondent Angela Brown has the details.
Millions of Americans are earning more money but are still broke.
The larger context here, every single American has lost money based on the rapid increase in price costs because our wages have not grown as fast.
Wages are up, but so is everything else. This new survey from Bankrate puts it all in perspective. Bankrate found 61% of workers have gotten a raise, better paying job, or both over the last year. Usually, more money means more security, but not when inflation is at record highs. 55% said their pay is not keeping up with the increase in household expenses due to inflation, and many got a raise.
Despite a very strong labor market where 60% of workers are getting pay raises of one form or another, we found that inflation is outpacing that for a lot of households. Even those among those that did get a pay raise, half said it wasn't enough to keep up with the increase in household expenses.
Especially at the grocery store. Eggs, not a luxury item, up over 39%. Flour, over 23%. Milk, over 17%. Author Michelle Singletary describes what many of us are doing.
I'll look at my bank statement, figure out what's going on, jot it down, and then sort of go through it and see what I can cut.
Record inflation hurts low to middle income families the most. The Economic Policy Institute says people making $7.25 an hour, that's the federal minimum wage, are earning less now than over 60 years ago if you factor in inflation.
I mean, we've seen a strong labor market. We've seen some of the best wage growth in 20 years. We had, up until recently, the lowest unemployment rate in 50 years. We'd normally be doing backflips about this type of environment, but with inflation running at 4-decade highs, it's swamped those pay increases.
The director of the Regional Economic Development Institute at Colorado State University says if there's any reason for optimism, it's that prices aren't going up that much month to month. But when you back out and look at it year to year, inflation is at 8.3%. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
It's been another gorgeous day with warm temperatures, but it hasn't been too hot and it really hasn't been too humid. Current temperatures sit at 79 over Baltimore with sunny skies and light winds out of the north-northwest around 5 miles per hour. Temperatures across the state are mainly in the 70s, but we did have a couple spots in the low 80s. That means that we were close to average for this time of year, but we're actually looking at a warm up heading into the weekend. First overnight, our numbers fall to the 50s and the 60s. We'll see those higher numbers closer to the Bay and in southern Maryland, but we stay mostly quiet and mostly clear. However, you may want a light jacket as you head outside in the morning. You can shed the layers by the afternoon as our high temperatures reach the 70s and the 80s. We'll be a little bit warmer tomorrow, but humidity will be lower, and we're looking at a great start to the weekend. Today we were in that comfortable range. Tomorrow it'll feel a little drier and we'll be in that pleasant range. But notice as we head into the rest of the weekend, those numbers do start to slightly rise and it gets a little more sticky as we head into next week. As we continue, we'll stay mostly clear overnight and we'll wake up to lots of sunshine tomorrow morning. We keep the mostly sunny skies as we head into the afternoon. High pressure will build over our region, and that's what's keeping us dry. It'll lead to lots of sunshine, but as that departs, more clouds move in, and it also starts to feel a little more sticky. Notice we have more clouds to start off Saturday morning, but we are looking at more sunshine by the afternoon. We're also keeping watch on Tropical Storm Fiona. That system expected to move toward the Lesser Antilles and then moving over Puerto Rico and Hispaniola before making a northward turn. That would happen on Tuesday, so we'll have to watch as that system moves over land. It is expected to weaken, but it's still too early to say what happens after about 5 days out or so. 57 for the low temperature tonight, and here we remain nice and quiet with clear skies. Winds will be out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then tomorrow, a great way to start the weekend with high temperatures around 82. Expect plenty of sunshine as we make our way into the rest of the weekend. Temperatures do start to rise. 84 with plenty of sunshine on Saturday. Then for the Ravens home opener on Sunday, we're looking at highs around 88. It'll feel sticky and closer to the 90s, so be sure to stay hydrated and dress for the heat. 90 on Monday, and we still are looking at hot temperatures as we head into the start of fall on Thursday. We'll be in the upper 80s. Back to you.
Coming up at 6 o'clock, a new crime trend nearby when it comes to cars. The warning about wheels and which vehicles thieves are targeting.
Home is where the heart is, and for the Ravens, that's M&T Bank Stadium. How running back J.K. Dobbins is progressing ahead of the Week 2 matchup with the Dolphins. Ahead on Sports Unlimited. A sea of purple will rise over M&T Bank Stadium as the Ravens take on the Miami Dolphins in their home opener. And we're keeping a close eye on the injured guys, each easing their way back to the practice field. Ronnie Stanley, Marcus Peters, Travis Jones, and J.K. Dobbins are the big names. Stanley was limited on Wednesday, and he was not seen during the media viewing period today. He did not participate. Peters and Jones practiced for the second straight time this week, as did J.K. Dobbins. All three of those guys were full participants on Thursday. And that's a great sign for both Dobbins and this Ravens offense.
He's working through his process every day. I feel like he's getting better every day. I'm not exactly sure when he's going to be out there. We love the progress he's making, though. And, he's going to be out here pretty soon. I can't put a date on it right now, though.
So if Dobbins does get to take the field on Sunday, it would really be the first time that he's gotten to take the field at M&T Bank Stadium in front of a packed house with a sea of purple just taking over those stands. For now in Owings Mills, Rocco DeSangro for Sports Unlimited.
Coming up on Fox 45 News at 6, the Marilyn Mosby trial pushed to spring of 2023. Plus, why one attorney apologized for comments he made on our air live yesterday. And DPW admits to a shortcoming in communication over the E. coli contamination in the water, despite the mayor previously defending the response. What prompted the change? Tune in today.
Spring 2023, that is the new trial date for City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. Why we have to wait so long and why one of her attorneys is apologizing today. Trust issues remain about Baltimore's water supply, why DPW is admitting to mistakes made during the E. coli crisis. And a major strike sidestepped, how rail workers and their employers were able to work out a deal with some help from the Oval Office.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 6.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Bubala. Our top story at 6, a new trial date has been set for City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, and it's going to be a while. Fox 45's Jeff Abel is at the courthouse and has an update from today's hearing.
A judge has ordered a 6-month delay in the perjury trial of State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. Mosby and her legal team left the courthouse a few minutes ago following a 2-hour hearing and a tug-of-war over when this case should be rescheduled. As you know, the trial was set to begin on Monday, but delays in the disclosure of evidence forced the judge to delay the case. Right now, Mosby is set to stand trial on March 27. And on the way out of the courtroom today, we ask her legal team about the delay.
It is what it is. You got the court's order, and we're going to follow it.
You wanted a speedy trial.
Yeah, this is as fast as the court could do it.
Earlier today, Mosby's defense attorney A. Scott Bolden apologized to the judge for making some very pointed comments about the government outside the courthouse yesterday. Prosecutors, because of that, has asked for a gag order in this case, but so far the judge has not insisted on it. Jeff Apel, Fox 45 News.
And as Jeff just mentioned, when leaving the courtroom after the trial was delayed yesterday, Mosby's attorney, A. Scott Bolden, was vocal in his displeasure.
And they've told us repeatedly they didn't want experts, they didn't need experts, and now on the eve of trial, they report to the court on the record that they're going to use experts. All right? If I could curse, I'd tell you it was all bullshit. Right?
Again, Bolden apologized for those comments today in court as prosecutors seek that gag order. A decision on that request won't be made until at least October 7th. Also, the deadline for Mosby's team to disclose more information on witnesses they want to call. Maryland's two gubernatorial candidates are facing off, this time on the issue of child care and education. It wasn't technically a debate since the two spoke during a virtual hearing at separate times, but Democrat Wes Moore and Republican Dan Cox both had a fiery response to the state's proposed Time to Care Act. The act would allow Maryland workers up to 12 weeks of paid time off for family and medical leave.
When you have the fact that Maryland ranks 7th for the most expensive childcare inside the country and with costs that are exceeding that of in-state college tuition, we know we have a system that is functionally ruptured and needs to get fixed.
Because the incentive needs to be there. If you just crush the small business community with a mandate, with an unfunded mandate, you won't actually provide more childcare access or time at home with the child. You'll actually cancel the jobs.
Well, the Time to Care Act is currently set to take effect in 2025, but could hinge on who wins the governor's race this fall. And here are a few dates to monitor as the general election looms. The deadline to register to vote is October 18th. Early voting will begin October 27th, and mail-in ballots must be requested by November 1st. Election Day is on November 8th.
They got the water just sitting there. Why the people can't get water?
I would like for the mayor to drink this water. And if he he can come over and have a glass of water with me.
Well, one West Baltimore woman says she still doesn't trust the city's water supply, calling on Mayor Scott to drink from her faucet. Keith Daniels is heading to that woman's house to collect a sample to be tested tonight. Now, meanwhile, city leaders are working to address the crisis. They held a hearing on the contaminated water at City Hall this afternoon. The city council continues to ask DPW why West Baltimore residents didn't know about the E. coli scare sooner. Maxine Stryker brings us up to speed.
There was a lot of outrage over the apparent lack of communication over the water crisis, and DPW admits they could have done a better job notifying the public. But council members say it's too late as this whole situation has created a distrust in the water system.
The most critical time in a crisis is those first 24 hours. And frankly, I'm disgusted on how those first 24 hours was handled.
Disgust, disappointment, and frustration. Councilman Yitzi Schleifer and his colleagues did not hold back Thursday, questioning the Department of Public Works about the E. coli water crisis that unfolded in West Baltimore over Labor Day weekend.
I'm extremely disappointed by the unclear and inconsistent communication, as well as the low resolution map that came from DPW. In the first 48 hours of this water contamination event. I am especially disappointed that this has happened in West Baltimore.
Council members in unison expressing the public and media were left in the dark as a result of the agency's poor communication.
I think
the city failed. I think the entire city failed with this.
DPW says they first tested the water during routine testing Friday, September 2nd. By Saturday, they had a positive test and resampled the water. By Sunday, DPW says they had 3 confirmed positive tests of E. coli. They began flushing hydrants and notified the Maryland Department of the Environment. But DPW Director Jason Mitchell says the public was still not notified.
But there was no communication to the public on Sunday about this.
Mitchell says MDE approved an outreach strategy Sunday night, and a Sandtown nursing home was notified. Yet it wasn't until 7:43 Monday morning that the public was notified on Twitter and Nextdoor. After that, they didn't post an update for nearly 9 hours.
Why bury it in a tweet?
Councilman Schleifer questioning why DPW only put the word out on Twitter and Nextdoor, social media sites not everyone is utilizing.
How long would it have taken them to copy and paste that information and post it on these other platforms?
It doesn't take long, as you can imagine, but I think to your point, and to my opening remarks and my closing remarks, there was a lot of lessons learned. Right? And communication was a huge lesson.
Mitchell insists they met regulatory requirements but could have done better. Yet Councilman Eric Costello believes they failed to meet the requirements of the Safe Drinking Water Act by not alerting the public within 24 hours.
DPW was in violation of the requirements to provide notification.
Mitchell says MDE was notified within the time limit, still insisting they will improve moving forward.
We did struggle the first 24 hours. And I said that earlier, and I will say that again. We struggled. We needed help.
Mitchell says Baltimore deserves better, and they will do better moving forward, saying they're looking to bring new talent into their communications department. He says at this time, DPW has still not identified the source of the contamination. In City Hall, Maxine Stryker, Fox 45 News.
Fox 45 has questioned the mayor about the city's response to the E. coli contamination last week, and here is his response.
There was no misbundling of communication. You weren't here the other day, but we laid that out, that we follow the protocol of how you communicate and how you have to, MD has to say to DPW, yes, you can say this at this time. That was followed. We're going to follow every rule and every regulation. And when you're talking about an issue like this, again, this wasn't something that DPW mismanaged. They found out the water had this in it because they did the testing. This wasn't someone else telling us.
So you're satisfied with how the situation was handled top to bottom from everyone involved?
So I haven't even had a chance to breathe yet, Mackenzie. You should ask me that question in about 2 or 3 days as I go back and do analysis myself.
Fox 45 was in West Baltimore last night as some residents complained about why the city is no longer handing out bottled water. The city says it's storing the water for future emergencies.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
Jackson, Mississippi has lifted its own boil water advisory after nearly 7 weeks. Well, the safety of the water supply has been in question ever since an issue was discovered with one of the city's 2 water treatment plants. Most customers completely lost service for several days in late August. Problems were complicated by days of torrential rain and flooding. Emergency repairs are still underway at the affected water treatment plant.
Riel, thank you. Well, here's our look at today's top trending stories. Number 1, fears of a rail strike are now over as freight workers come to an agreement with their employers. This means MARC service will not be altered and will go on as scheduled tomorrow. The agreement comes after more than 20 hours of negotiating. Rail unions were pushing for the companies to address a growing worker shortage and stop requiring workers to be on call 7 days a week. President Biden thanked both sides for their work towards the deal.
Together, we reached an agreement. You reached an agreement that will keep our critical rail system working and avoid disruptions of our economy. And I'm grateful for the members of the administration who worked tirelessly on both sides to help get this done.
Had the deal not been approved, it could have been devastating to American supply chains. Number 2, a huge boost in federal funding on its way to the Coast Guard yard in Anne Arundel County. U.S. Senators Chris Van Hollen and Ben Cardin have secured more than $630 million to help overhaul the current infrastructure there. We're taking a live look at the south side of the Key Bridge, which runs right over the Coast Guard yard. The yard serves as the core for the branch's shipbuilding and repair needs. The improvements will allow the area to service larger and more advanced ships. Number 3, one of the greatest players to ever grace a tennis court is calling it a career. Roger Federer is retiring after next week's tournament in London. The 41-year-old Swiss star won 20 Grand Slam titles, third of all time. He finished 5 seasons as the world's #1 player, but he hasn't played a competitive tournament in nearly 18 months. He's had some knee issues. In a statement, Federer says he knows his body's limits. Well, dozens of migrants are being sent away from southern states, sometimes arriving in the Northeast without notice. How the governors of Texas and Florida are justifying their decisions.
Consumer spending remains strong, but mortgages are at their highest rate in more than a decade. I'm Atrell Nashar with the latest economic news impacting you.
And temperatures today were around 80 degrees, and that's actually average for September 15th, but we're looking at a big warm up, making it feel more like August. I'll let you know how hot it could get coming up in my full forecast.
Now, a Fox 45 News alert in 3, 2, 1.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott is continuing to protest President Biden's border policies by sending migrants across the country. A busload arrived at the Naval Observatory in D.C., the vice president's residence, many carrying trash bags full of their belongings. Texas has spent more than $12 million busing migrants out of state. This comes just a day after migrants were flown into Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. The community stepped up to help situate those migrants, but opponents say DeSantis turned his back on those in need. Governor DeSantis addressed his decision last night, saying that Florida is, quote, not a sanctuary state. Mary?
Riel, thank you. Well, the cost of buying a home is skyrocketing. 30-year fixed mortgage rates are up above 6% for the first time since 2008. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has more on how Americans are trying to keep up with the prices.
American spending is holding up in the fight against inflation, but not by much. Retail sales in August better than expected, up 0.3% from July, driven by auto sales. Spending at bars and restaurants and on groceries is also strong. National Retail Federation Chief Economist Jack Kleinhens.
The consumer has been resilient. I think they have a willingness to spend. And the important thing is they have the ability to spend.
For many, spending more on food isn't a choice. They have to keep up with inflation. Moody's Analytics estimates inflation is costing households about $460 per month.
The food is just ridiculous. It's just so expensive.
Mr. President. On Thursday, President Biden brushing off concerns it will get worse after boasting a tentative rail agreement that spares supply chains from a major blow.
Mr. President, grocery prices are up over 13%. What do you tell struggling Americans?
Rail's moving, it's not going to go up.
A new Economist YouGov poll shows Americans aren't as confident. 69% say they expect inflation in 6 months to be higher or the same as it is now. 18% say lower, 13% are not sure. Some good inflation news this week. Wholesale prices dipping slightly in August, but the benefits likely won't be noticed by consumers for a while.
Many goods are already on shelves of retailers, and they've already begun to stock up for the holiday season.
New signs the private sector's mood is souring. The Business Roundtable's latest CEO Economic Outlook Index shows executives lowering expectations for hiring, sales, and capital investment. All of this sets up an economy likely to be in a state of touch and go for the foreseeable future. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar reporting.
Well, there are some encouraging signs if you're retired or about to call it a career. Millions of Americans who receive Social Security benefits could see bigger checks next year to keep pace with inflation. Monthly payments could jump more than 8%, an increase of about $1,700 a year. The adjustment will begin October 13th.
Right now, you're taking a look over the harbor and over Towson. We've got nice and comfortable temperatures. We're in the 70s with sunshine. And on the HD radar, really not much to see. It's nice and dry, but we've got our next weather maker coming in. And behind that, we're talking an increase in temperatures heading into the weekend. Currently, we sit at 77, and it's so nice outside. We've got lots of sunshine in the background. Winds are light around 7 miles per hour. Temperatures across the state are mainly in the 70s. We've got 78 in Laurel. That is our high spot right now. And then we find the 60s, 64 over in Oakland. That's the low spot, but it's been a very pleasant day. These numbers will drop overnight. We're looking at lows in the 50s and in the 60s, a little bit closer to the Bay and in southern Maryland. But we'll enjoy nice and mostly clear skies before we have a nice and sunny day tomorrow, along with an increase in temperatures. We'll be around 82, so about 2 degrees warmer than today, but those numbers keep climbing throughout the weekend. 84 on Saturday, 88 on Sunday, and well above average for this time of year, making it feel more like August outside. Notice, though, over the next 3 days, we do stay dry, so a great weekend for spending some time outside and great for the Ravens home opener. We'll stay nice and clear overnight, and we'll wake up to lots of sunshine in the morning around 7 a.m. Temperatures start in the 50s and the 60s, so you may want a light jacket as you head outside in the morning, but you can shed the layers heading into the afternoon. Highs around 3 p.m. reach the 70s and the 80s, and you can see that high-pressure system starting to work its way into our region. That will help keep us dry, and it'll keep it feeling comfortable and not too humid. But once that high-pressure system departs, we're talking more humidity moving in for Saturday and Sunday. Now, we'll start Saturday with more clouds, but by the afternoon, expect more sunshine. We're also keeping watch on Tropical Storm Fiona. The system's expected to move toward the Lesser Antilles, impacting parts of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola before making a northward turn. Now, it's too early to say where it goes as it enters the Atlantic, but we'll keep watching that system, and we still have many days to monitor it. Overnight, our numbers fall to 57 with clear, quiet, and cool conditions and a light breeze with winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then tomorrow, we're in for another gorgeous day, a great way to start the weekend. 59 around 7 a.m. Then numbers climb to the upper 70s and the low 80s. Again, we'll be above average, but we've got the summer-like heat returning next week. I'll let you know just how hot it gets coming up in my 10-day forecast. Back to you.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
There's bad weather, and then there's New Hampshire's Mount Washington. Known as the home for some of the world's worst weather, winds were gusting at least 70 miles per hour today. With temperatures in the 20s, the wind chill was in the single digits. Thanks to the folks at the Mount Washington Observatory for the photos and their dedication to researching weather in such inhospitable conditions.
Want to see your weather photos and videos on TV? Click Chime In on this station's website to share.
Baltimore's carjacking problem has been well documented, but thieves in D.C. are after a specific car part. And tonight's Assignment America's Sam Ford from our Sinclair sister station in Washington, D.C. explains.
This is the fifth one I've done this week.
Oh, my God.
Bebo DC is his online name. He's a regular on TikTok and Twitter.
And another one.
His government name's Ibrahim Arborish, driver for A1 Towing, who says wheel thieves are back in a big way. They've stripped all the tires off cars, leaving them on soda crates. He puts temp wheels on to get them on a truck into a body shop.
Monday was a Camry, Tuesday was the Acura RDX, Wednesday was 2 different Camrys.
We've seen the thieves on surveillance, but never heard of any arrested. After nearly 90 tows like this, has he?
They don't even show up to do the report. It's online. There's no fingerprinting. The police don't come out. It's online reporting. Who you gonna catch? Who you gonna catch?
You don't think they're that interested in catching anybody?
Not at all. DC got too much on their hands right now.
We regard it as a serious crime and we investigate it.
I told the mayor I've never heard of anyone.
Nobody seems to have been
I find that hard to
that.
believe, but I don't know the answer to that. So let me ask MPD what the answer is.
It's not that hard to believe, because if it was, they wouldn't still be doing it now, would they? And they wouldn't be doing it so often.
As for what they do with the tires, his speculation.
Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, they're all over, but how are you going to tag them? There's no VINs, there's no serial numbers, there's no identifying marks. All the rims just look the same. So how could you tell yours from mine?
We are in for a gorgeous day tomorrow and a great start to the weekend. We'll have lots of sunshine and temperatures around 82. It won't be too humid, but the humidity and our temperatures rise as we head into the rest of the weekend. 84 on Saturday with lots of sunshine. 88 and a little sticky on Sunday for the Ravens home opener. Make sure that you're practicing heat safety and staying hydrated. Then 90 on Monday. After that, our temperatures still stay in the upper 80s. 89 on Tuesday, 87 on Wednesday. Then for the autumnal equinox on Thursday, 88 for the high temperature. It's not until the second half of the week into the weekend when our temperatures finally start to fall. Back to you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Well, tonight's Mary's Moment might be better labeled as Maisie's Moment. Check this out. 2-year-old chimpanzee Maisie enjoying an afternoon snack, hi there, at the Maryland Zoo in Baltimore. Guess what? Grapes are Maisie's favorite. She just celebrated her 2nd birthday at the end of August. She is the youngest chimp currently at the zoo. And she likes the camera. She's mugging for the camera there. Well, coming up tonight, a special presentation of Major League Baseball on Fox. The Pittsburgh Pirates are taking on the New York Mets. Coverage starts at 7 with first pitch at 7:15. We'll see you after the game. And that's all for Fox 45 News at 6. Family Feud's next. We'll see you later tonight. Thanks for watching. Good night.